Can I turn to the cars and utes, as Senator O'Sullivan was talking about? Car makers must comply with regulations that you're about to introduce, and they must also comply with customers' needs. Now, my understanding is that the demand for sedans, for example, a Toyota Corolla or a Honda Civic, is decreasing, and the demand for the corresponding SUV, which in the case of Toyota would be a RAV4 or a Honda Civic, is increasing dramatically. The SUVs are heavier, they're more utilitarian, but they're preferred. How does but they'll chew more fuel and they produce more carbon dioxide, which to me is not a problem. But anyway, how does that affect the government? Because the manufacturer, because they on the one hand have a government that says decrease the size of the car, the weight, the fuel, increase the fuel efficiency, but the customers say no, do the opposite. The customers don't think in terms of carbon dioxide because they know it's right.
Senator, I think, as I mentioned to a previous answer just before, that the manufacturers are able to make commercial decisions as to what their fleet looks like. The standard looks at their whole fleet, and there are a range of ways that manufacturers can meet the standard, including, and I think Mr Cathedge went through this before, but not sure if you were here, happy he could go through that again, in terms of they're able to meet, if they get credits in one year, they can hold them over to meet if they get debits in a following year. They can also trade credits, but they can look at the fleet and change the fleet and make commercial decisions in order to what they import into the country and offer consumers.
So before Mr Cathedge does that, perhaps you could tell me if customers want SUVs over sedans, will the company be penalised?
So I think I can point you, Senator, to Appendix A of our impact analysis, where we set out the sales volumes of various types of vehicles. Your question is actually quite difficult because, as Ms. Purvis-Smith mentioned, there's actually quite a lot of things that vehicle suppliers can do to improve the efficiency of the vehicles and their fleet overall. So the first thing I'll mention quickly is that there's changes to the vehicle themselves that they can make, so improving the aerodynamics, changing the drivetrain.
Excuse me for a minute. I accept that. But an SUV, compared to a sedan, they can make improvements on both, but the SUV will chew more fuel and is heavier. Full stop. End of story.
And so that's right, Senator. And so one of the features of the policy is to include a few flexibility mechanisms. And the first one is to include two targets: one target for passenger vehicles and a higher target for light commercial vehicles. And the second flexibility mechanism in the scheme is to adjust the limit by weight. So you might have a particular Toyota Kluger, for example, and that will have a particular mass in running order, and therefore the target for that vehicle or the fleet of vehicles that weight will be adjusted. Then the third thing is that in any given year, a vehicle supplier might bring in too many vehicles that are too polluting, and they've got 2 years after that point to bring what's called their initial emissions value down to zero. So they do have some time.
Thank you. Just looking at electric vehicles, for example, this policy, these regulations are to drive to make petrol and diesel vehicles less attractive and make electric vehicles more attractive. That's clearly what's going on. But the efficiency of resources in an electric vehicle is quite low because the vehicles are inherently heavier, as Senator O'Sullivan said, needing heavier brakes, more resources, heavier suspension, more resources, heavier components all through, more resources. So we're actually driving an economy to use less efficient vehicles and less efficient use of resources. That doesn't make sense to me.
I'm sorry, what was the question, Senator?
The question is, why are you aware that that's happening?
I think I'd probably say, so the purpose of the new vehicle efficiency standard is to improve the efficiency of new vehicles. It's not to drive a particular type of vehicle or particular type of outcome, except for reduced emissions. That's the purpose of the policy.
You talk about reduced emissions. Last question. Have you done any work on the life cycle production of carbon dioxide from a diesel and a petrol vehicle compared to the electric vehicle?
We have, Senator.
And particularly right through the mining sector as well, because of the extra resources that need to be mined for an EV.
So we included some evidence in our impact analysis, which is now published on the Office of Impact Analysis website. So section 4.2.1 sets out a range of different estimates that have been made. The first one is from our own Bureau of Infrastructure and Transport Research Economics, which finds that while manufacturing an EV may produce more GHG emissions than an internal combustion engine, that is more than offset by after about 1 year if the vehicle is charged from renewably sourced electricity, i.e. home solar, and 2 years if charged from the grid using a mix of electricity generation sources. In that section, Senator, I won't read it all out. We do have, I think, 4 other sources that support the same contention.
There's an assumption there that they'll be using your renewable solar and wind. So that's a big assumption. Thank you.